You know the feeling. You're sitting at your desk, just staring at your screen, and you're bombarded by this constant, relentless barrage of promises.
Oh, absolutely. Every single newsletter, every headline.
Every tech guru on your feed, they're all telling you that AI is going to instantly transform how you work. Like you're going to 10x your productivity, work a 2-hour day, and it's going to be absolute magic.
Right, the utopian dream.
Yeah, but then you actually sit down and try to use these tools for your job, and suddenly reality hits hard. You're wrestling with this unpredictable, sometimes infuriating system.
That's scoring.
It really is. You ask it for a simple summary, and it gives you this hallucinated, rambling essay. Or you ask for data formatting, and it just, I don't know, misses half the words entirely.
Yeah.
There's this massive disconnect between the shiny promises and the gritty, messy reality of actually getting your work done on a Tuesday afternoon.
It's the modern professional's dilemma, really.
Yeah.
We're told we've been handed a magic wand, but it feels a lot more like trying to steer a very fast, very unpredictable sports car.
While wearing a blindfold.
Exactly. You know there's power under the hood, but you have no idea when you're going to just, hit a wall.
And that frustration, that exact gap between the hype and the desk, is what we're tackling in today's deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack an incredibly practical, reality-grounded source. It's called Getting Real About AI, Why Efficiency Takes More Than Enthusiasm.
It's such a great piece.
It really is. It's authored by Kathy Sarenko, the founder of AI Efficiency Labs. We're going to dig deep into her framework for making these tools actually work for you, and I promise we will give you more information on how to find Kathy and her work at the end of our discussion. Okay, let's unpack this, because the central argument here isn't that AI is useless. In fact, it's almost the exact opposite, isn't it?
It is. Her core thesis is incredibly vital for the moment we're in right now. She makes it very clear that AI productivity gains are entirely real. You can genuinely improve how you and your team work.
But there's a catch.
A big one. Those gains are conditional. They're not magic. Achieving them requires practice. It requires a pretty rigid process. And, well, perhaps most importantly, it requires taking a brutally honest look at the risks involved.
Right, it's not just flipping a switch.
No, not at all. It's about building the specific skills to use the tool effectively and knowing exactly how to catch it when it fails.
Okay, but before we get into the failures and the anxiety-inducing risks, I want to establish a baseline. If I'm sitting at my desk right now looking at my to-do list, where does this technology actually excel? What is it legitimately built for today?
It has a very specific sweet spot. When you implement it thoughtfully, it delivers massive value in a few key areas. First, speeding up first drafts.
Oh, getting past the blank page.
Exactly. Whether it's an internal document, an email, or a project outline, it gives you a starting point so you aren't just staring at a terrifyingly blank screen.
Which is a huge time saver. What else?
Second is summarizing dense information. That way you can focus your cognitive energy on analyzing the facts rather than just extracting them from a 30-page PDF.
That makes sense.
It's also phenomenal in handling pattern-based tasks like formatting and categorization. And honestly, it's a brilliant sparring partner for brainstorming when you're stuck.
I really like that framing because it strips away all the mysticism. You're using it for the heavy lifting of words, not the final polish of thought. And this plays right into a strategy the source talks about, which is targeting the low-hanging fruit. What does that actually look like in practice?
So targeting the low-hanging fruit means actively identifying low-risk, high-value tasks. You start with areas where if the AI makes a mistake, it's incredibly easy to catch.
And the stakes are low.
Basically zero.
Yeah.
You aren't sending an unverified AI draft to your board of directors, all right? Yeah. You're using it to summarize your own messy notes to prep for a morning stand-up meeting.
Right. There's a hypothetical scenario in the source that really crystallized this for me. Imagine a marketing coordinator who has to draft weekly client update emails.
A very tedious task.
Super repetitive. Usually it takes her about 45 minutes to pull the data, write it out, format the bullet points, and send it. But then she starts using AI.
And the workflow changes
Completely. Now, she feeds the raw data into the prompt, the AI generates the structure in the first draft, and she just spends her time adjusting the tone, adding specific nuanced details, and hitting send.
So she's just doing the high-level work.
Yeah, a 45-minute task becomes a 15-minute task. Over the course of 3 months, she reclaims roughly 6 hours a month. That is almost an entire workday giving back to her for higher value creative work.
And we really need to look at why that specific scenario works so well. It works precisely because she is letting the AI handle the mechanical structure while she remains entirely responsible for the substance.
It makes me think of an analogy. Working with AI in this sweet spot is like having a highly caffeinated, wildly overeager intern sitting right next to your desk.
Overeager is definitely the operative word there.
Right. If you tell this intern, hey, I need a rough outline of our third quarter goals, they will sprint to their desk and bring you back 3 pages of text in 5 minutes.
Which is fantastic for busting through that blank page syndrome.
It is. But you would never, ever blindly forward that intern's unread, unedited draft directly to your biggest client. You have to read it. You have to verify it.
That analogy captures the dynamic perfectly. The marketing coordinator's workflow has what we call natural guardrails.
Natural guardrails.
Yeah, she reviews every single email before it goes out. The stakes of any single weekly update are manageable, and any weird phrasing or factual error is going to be caught immediately by her human eye.
So the human is the guardrail.
Exactly. The AI accelerates the mechanical part of the process, but human judgment is never removed from the equation.
Okay, let's pause right there. If the AI is this caffeinated intern, I feel like the real danger starts when that intern suddenly shows up to the office wearing a perfectly tailored bespoke suit, carrying a leather briefcase, and speaking with absolute unwavering confidence.
Oh, the illusion of competence.
Yeah, because if the output looks completely professional, aren't our brains just wired to assume it's accurate? I feel like that polish is actually a massive trap.
You've hit on one of the most insidious psychological dangers of this technology. It's what the source calls the polished peril.
The polished peril, I like that.
What's fascinating here is to understand why we fall for it. We have to look at how these large language models actually work under the hood. They do not have a database of facts.
They don't.
No, they don't know what a contract is or what a liability cap is. They are essentially predicting the next most likely word in a sequence based on vast amounts of training data. It's just statistical probability.
So it's basically an incredibly powerful, steroid-injected version of iPhone autocomplete.
That is a very accurate way to think about it. And because it's just predicting words, it has absolutely no concept of truth or falsehood.
Wow.
Furthermore, it cannot signal uncertainty. It will never output a sentence that says, I'm not entirely sure about this legal clause. You might want to double check my work. It generates plausible sounding output regardless of accuracy.
And the trap is that it formats that plausible sounding output beautifully. Gives you bullet points, bold headers, perfect grammar.
Exactly. It's like a Hollywood movie set.
Yeah.
From the front, it looks like a fully functioning, beautiful bank building. But if you open the front door, there's just scaffolding and empty dirt behind it.
There's nothing holding it up.
Right. There's no actual reasoning holding the structure up.
Right.
But because it looks grammatically perfect and professional, it bypasses our natural skepticism. We let our guard down because it looks like finished work.
That terrifies me, honestly, and there's a cautionary tale in the source about a project manager that perfectly illustrates this Hollywood set problem.
It's a very sobering example of what happens when that skepticism disappears.
So, a project manager asks the AI to summarize some key contract terms for a big client presentation.
Which sounds like a standard time-saving task.
It does, and the AI spits out this beautiful, clean, bulleted summary. It looks incredibly authoritative. But tucked inside that gorgeous formatting, the AI completely mischaracterizes a liability cap.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it says the cap applies to all damages when the actual contract states it only excludes consequential damages.
That is a massive, fundamental legal distinction.
Massive. But the project manager doesn't catch it. Why? Because the output doesn't look like a rough draft. It looks like a finished legal analysis.
And they trusted it.
Completely. The client makes business decisions based on this hallucinated information, and the error doesn't surface until months later during an actual dispute. Which brings me to a question I've been wrestling with. If the AI completely fabricates a legal clause or a financial metric, and a professional uses it who is actually on the hook, does the software company share that liability, or is the professional entirely exposed?
The professional is entirely exposed. You carry the liability, not the algorithm.
Really?
Yes. This is why the blind pursuit of extreme efficiency is creating a massive liability time bomb for businesses right now. You have to be hyper-vigilant in specific danger zones.
What are those danger zones?
Anytime AI touches verifiable facts, so citations, statistics, dates, or technical specifications, you are in a danger zone. It is also incredibly dangerous when dealing with advice that carries professional liability, whether that's legal, financial, or medical compliance.
Because at the end of the day, your signature is at the bottom of the document, not the AI's.
Precisely. And there's an even more dangerous application here: reusable templates.
Oh, like form letters.
Exactly. Think about precedents or client-facing onboarding materials that get copied and pasted repeatedly. If an AI hallucinates one subtle, legally binding mistake into a master template, that single error can invisibly replicate across dozens or even hundreds of client documents before anyone notices.
It's a multiplier effect for mistakes.
It really is.
Okay, so we've established the two extremes. On one hand, the low-hanging fruit where the AI safely saves us hours of busy work. On the other hand, the polished peril where a hallucinated template can literally cost a company millions of dollars in liability. If you're listening to this and you want the efficiency without the lawsuit, how do we actually bridge that gap?
This is where we shift from theory to the four-step framework for honest implementation. And the very first step is to explicitly abandon the revolutionize everything mindset.
You have to start small.
You have to.
Yeah.
This goes back to identifying those low-risk tasks we discussed earlier. Look for repetitive internal work where mistakes are obvious. Build your team's confidence and skill in those low-stakes environments before you even consider letting the AI touch client-facing material.
Keep the intern doing internal summaries before you let them anywhere near the binding contracts. Makes perfect sense. But if I agree that starting small is the right move, how do I actually enforce that? Because I know how teams work. Someone is going to immediately try to automate their hardest, most complex task just to save time.
And that brings us to step 2. You must establish verification as non-negotiable. It has to be a mandatory checkpoint, not a casual suggestion.
I'm going to push back here for a second. If I have to spend 20 minutes meticulously fact-checking an AI summary to ensure it hasn't hallucinated, haven't I just lost all the time I supposedly saved? Doesn't heavy verification kill the efficiency?
That is the most common objection, but it assumes verification takes as long as creation. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
No, editing and verifying a draft is a totally different cognitive process than staring at a blank page and writing from scratch. However, your point is exactly why vague instructions like, hey team, make sure you review the AI output, fail entirely.
People just skim it.
Exactly. You have to define the parameters of verification. What exactly needs to be verified? Are we checking every word or just the numbers? Who is specifically responsible for doing the verification, and what external sources actually count as authoritative when fact-checking?
So it's a real process.
If that verification process isn't built into the workflow, the efficiency gains disappear the minute you have to redo a botched project.
So it's about treating the output with zero trust until proven otherwise, which ties directly into step 3. Expecting a learning curve. I think people assume because these tools use natural language, because you just type into a chat box, that there's nothing to learn. But AI fluency is not instant.
It's a totally new skill set. It requires budgeting time for learning, and specifically, giving your team the space to practice crafting effective prompts.
Yes, prompting. The source introduces a brilliant framework for this to get over that learning curve. They call it the junior high parameters.
I love this framework.
When I first read that, I thought it was going to be about dealing with teenager angst, but it's actually about the fundamental questions we learn in grade school. Who, what, when, where, why, and how.
It sounds elementary, but it is the absolute secret to bypassing the blank page syndrome and getting usable output. Most people just type, write me an email about the new project.
And then they're disappointed when the AI gives them generic nonsense.
Right, because the AI is guessing at the context.
Exactly. But if you apply the junior high parameters, you give the AI the boundaries it needs to function.
Right, you define the space.
Who are you writing this for? The executive team. What is the core message? The Q3 launch is delayed. When did this happen? Yesterday. Where's the impact? The European market. Why did it happen? Supply chain issues. How should the tone sound? Professional, but urgent.
It's so much better.
By feeding it those 6 parameters, you drastically reduce the chance of hallucination because you have narrowed the statistical probability of what it can generate.
You're building the walls of the sandbox before you let it play. But even with good prompting, there's a fascinating behavioral insight here during that learning curve. Early success often breeds dangerous overconfidence.
Oh, I can see that.
You ask it to write an email using those parameters, it does a brilliant job, and suddenly you think, wow, maybe it can write my quarterly financial forecast.
People see it work flawlessly once or twice on simple tasks, and they immediately trust it too broadly. True fluency means knowing when AI is not the right tool for the job.
Which sets up the fourth and final step, creating clear guidelines proactively. You have to decide what tools are approved and, crucially, what data is absolutely forbidden from being entered into a prompt before a crisis happens.
And there's a massive security warning here about confidential data on cloud servers that we cannot gloss over.
This is perhaps the most critical technical blind spot for most professionals. When you type proprietary information into a public AI tool, let's say a confidential client list or an unreleased financial model, you're often sending that data to a third-party cloud server.
And once it's out there, it's out there.
Exactly. Depending on the terms of service of the specific tool you're using, that data might be used to train future versions of the model.
Wait, really?
Yes. You could inadvertently leak your company's deepest trade secrets into the open internet simply because you wanted the AI to format a spreadsheet faster.
That is a terrifying thought, and it explains why proactive guidelines are so essential. Because what usually happens is a team member leaks confidential data, the company panics, and they create a reactive policy. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Reactive policies almost always swing to useless extremes.
It's human nature to overcorrect in the face of fear.
Totally. The company either institutes a draconian ban on all AI entirely, stripping away all those real efficiency gains for the people who are using it safely, or management just sticks their heads in the sand, pretends the problem doesn't exist, and hopes nobody gets sued. Proactive guidelines prevent that pendulum swing.
And to prove that this four-step implementation framework isn't just academic theory, we can look at a direct side-by-side comparison. It really shows the difference between a culture of enthusiasm and a culture of process.
I love this part. The tale of two firms. This is where the rubber meets the road. So we have two hypothetical accounting firms, Firm A and Firm B. They both decide they want to adopt AI to help draft complex client memos.
Okay, set the stage for Firm A.
Now, Firm A takes the highly enthusiastic zero process route. Management basically sends out an email that says, hey everyone, we have access to this new AI tool. Use it to save time and be innovative. That is it. No further guidance.
And the results are completely predictable based on what we've discussed. Staff usage becomes totally inconsistent. Some people use it for everything. Some people use it for nothing.
As the verification.
Because they're rushing for efficiency, people start skipping verification.
Yep.
They just assume someone else will catch the errors. And within 6 months, Firm A has 3 major client complaints about significant factual errors in their official memos.
3 major complaints in an industry built on trust. That is a devastating hit to their reputation. Now, let's look at Firm B. Firm B wants the efficiency, but they implement a simple, rigid protocol.
Let's hear it.
First, any draft generated by AI is immediately saved into a shared document folder boldly labeled unverified. It's essentially a quarantine zone for AI text.
I love that concept. It serves as a constant psychological reminder to the entire team that the text within that folder cannot be trusted yet.
Exactly. Then a second person, and this is key, it cannot be the person who prompted the AI, has to spot check the factual claims.
Yeah.
Any client-specific numbers or dates have to be manually confirmed against the original source document.
A real check and balance.
Right. Only after that second human signs off does the memo move out of quarantine and into a ready-for-review folder. Now, at first glance, that sounds incredibly tedious, but let's look at the result. 6 months later, Firm B has 0 client complaints.
0.
0. And here is the truly shocking metric, that entire verification process. The quarantine, the spot checking, the sign-off, it only costs them an average of 4 minutes per memo.
4 minutes of verification to prevent a liability disaster. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Firm B perfectly illustrates the ultimate lesson of this entire analysis. The teams that are getting genuine, sustainable productivity gains aren't the ones using AI the most. They aren't the ones letting it run wild across every department to see what happens. They are the ones using it well, with strict boundaries, consistent verification, and highly realistic expectations.
It's the fundamental difference between adopting the fastest and adopting the smartest.
Precisely. The author leaves us with a very powerful concluding philosophy. She says that the efficiency conversation and the risk conversation are not 2 separate discussions. They are 2 sides of the exact same coin.
Oh, I like that.
You cannot ask, how can this tool help us go faster, without simultaneously asking, how could this tool steer us off a cliff?
It's such a grounded, necessary way to look at this technology. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe sitting at the same desk we talked about at the beginning, here is how we synthesize this for your daily routine. Yes, the AI efficiency gains that everyone is screaming about online are available. They're real.
But they are absolutely not automatic.
Exactly. To get real value out of these tools, you have to start small. Look at your tasks for this afternoon. Go after the low-hanging fruit where mistakes won't sink the ship. Use the junior high parameters to get better drafts.
Who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Right. Build rigid, non-negotiable verification steps into your habits, like FirmB's 4-minute quarantine spot check. And above all, you have to internalize the fact that AI power does not and never will mean error-free.
It requires a fundamental shift in how you view your job. You're moving from being solely a creator of raw content to being a director, an editor, and a verifier of content.
And a massive thank you to our source for today's deep dive. As promised, the piece is called Getting Real About AI, Why Efficiency Takes More Than Enthusiasm. It was written by Kathy Sarenko. She is doing incredible grounded work in this space. If you're trying to navigate these waters for your own team or business, I highly encourage you to look her up and explore the resources at AI Efficiency Labs to learn more about implementing these systems safely, securely, and effectively.
The insights she provides are essential for anyone trying to bridge the gap between AI hype and daily reality. And it leaves us with a rather profound question to consider as we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
We've talked a lot about that overeager intern in the tailored suit, generating flawless-looking text that might be entirely fabricated. If the true value of AI in the workplace relies so heavily on our human ability to catch its mistakes, verify its claims, and protect our confidential data, will the most valuable professional skill of the future no longer be content creation, but rather elite-level editing and critical fact-checking? As the AI gets faster and more polished, how sharp are your critical verification skills right now?
Something to really think about the next time you ask that digital intern to draft a quick email for you. Until next time.